Phase 1 of NFL free agency is over for the Eagles. We start to round ourselves into Phase 2. We all know that maybe we anticipated there being a little bit more action for the Eagles in that early phase. But nonetheless, what's been done has been done. What's the subsequent and future moves that are made now? Let's talk a little bit about the positions of need on this Philadelphia Eagles football team. What's up, Eagles Nation? What's going on, NFL world? How you doing, Division Rivals? This is Steven Hyder with K-City Sports Channel, the sports channel where the cerebral NFL fan comes for about 10 minutes of daily content. Hey, guys, how's everybody doing? What a nice day it is, man. It's a nice day out this way, guys. So, if I can ask y'all to do a huge favor before we jump into today's topic, if you are not subscribed, if you end up liking the content which you're hearing today, do me a favor, guys, hit that subscription button. And also, guys, if you are subscribed and you're just an OG member who's here to support the channel, I appreciate everything y'all are doing. Hit that thumbs up button, guys. That's the next thing you can do to help me out here. All right, y'all. So, the Philadelphia Eagles, we rounded out Phase 1 of free agency. And, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of movement here, right? I mean, we've seen a couple of guys that have been around the locker room for a while to get re-signed. Some guys like Boston Scott, some guys like Greg Ward Jr. Nate Herbert got extended that kind of right of first refusal contract, the tender. But it wasn't a whole lot of movement, right? To sign Reddick the first day of free agency, pretty big signing, very team-friendly deal that he agreed to sign to. We're learning now it was over a 6-year period. Obviously, some of those years are going to probably be essentially dummy years. They'll be out years somewhere in that contract, clearly. But nonetheless, I mean, Zach Pascal yesterday was the next external signing that we made at the wide receiver position. Now, I would be willing to bet, guys, that right off the bat, we can talk about the defense in two areas that still need to be upgraded, right? Anthony Harris has been re-signed here as a safety, but as it stands, we don't know anything about Kevon Wallace. Marcus Epps definitely can play the role as a third safety. Still a lot to prove as your starting safety, although I like the underlying athleticism, and I like the way this young man has developed since he's been here in Philadelphia. With that said, I think we all are pretty much in agreement that another safety is not going to hurt anything here, whether it's through free agency, the draft, whatever means it comes by. I think we all agree that safety is a position the Eagles must get better at. There needs to be a little bit more depth added there. Outside of that, I have no clue who's going to start and play beside Darius Slay. I know a lot of you guys have been hitting me up and asking me about some of these younger corners, Tay Gowan in particular, about what I thought about Tay Gowan. Guys, I'm going to be honest with you. There's not a whole lot to break down on Tay Gowan. I can't give you a ton of information other than he didn't particularly have a lot of playing time against Division I opponents in college because, he transferred into UCF. And then he opted out of the 2020 season, I believe. So you don't have a ton of information to grade upon a guy like Tay Gowan. So I don't really know where Tay Gowan is. I would think that he's behind a guy like Zach McPherson, who I know a lot of you guys feel like they should bounce him inside to a nickel cornerback. But I think that he's one of these guys that really wants to play on the outside. He sees himself as an off-ball zone defender on the outside. I think that's the way he kind of envisions his role. So those young guys, they just did not get a lot of opportunity to play last year. I know down in Dallas things didn't go well, and it looked like those guys were definitely in over their heads. I will also add in, though, that knowing this coaching staff and the way they treated preseason and stuff, they may have been out there running a very, very vanilla defense compared to what they may run if that was really a game situation. And maybe it's not nearly as bad as it seems. It's just they didn't care about that game, and they were just basically there to get it over with and then maybe get a little bit of film on these guys, but I don't think they were necessarily coaching or scheming to win it. So I don't know what to make of that game. I would kind of hold back and reserve judgment until I can see a little bit more play from these guys. But we don't have a lot, right? I mean, that was one of the positives of last season, is that Darius Slay and Steven Nelson didn't have to come off the field very often. Darius Slay got shook up a few series here and there, and I think he did miss pretty much a half of one game almost. But for the most part, those guys were up and available to play, and we just never really ran into a circumstance where we had to heavily depend upon those players. Outside of that situation, guys, the other thing that I could think about that is an area of need for the Eagles is if we look at that off-the-ball linebacker role and what the Eagles do there. Right now, I got a feeling that the Eagles feel very, very confident in what they have in-house, which is, at the will linebacker position, which will absolutely be an off-the-ball marker here. That's going to be Davion Taylor's role, I believe, and I think that's how they envision Davion Taylor. As a Mike, they just signed TJ Edwards before the end of last season to that little bit of a contract extension. I think they love the growth and development of that player, and I think the current coaching staff, just like Jim Schwartz and the previous coaching staff, I think they're very fond of TJ Edwards. Now, I'm not saying that the Eagles shouldn't be out there looking for an upgrade if one presents itself, right? That's the fun part about the second and third wave of free agency is you never really know what veteran player is going to get undervalued and still be left out there. And as you head into the summer post-draft, if there's still, we didn't really spend a lot of resources in the draft. I don't know if they will or won't, guys. I'm not claiming they will or won't. But if we don't do that, and you, as an off-the-ball linebacker, I should say, in terms of draft resources, and you're sitting there in the early phases of summer, and you got some of these guys that are off-the-ball linebackers that could be available. I know some people are pointing about Kyle Van Noy, but I still believe Van Noy's a little bit more of an on-the-ball linebacker than off-the-ball linebacker. But certainly Bobby Wagner is a name to watch out for if his value is just way above what teams are willing to pay and they start filling in their positions of need. And you get to the early part of summer and a guy like Bobby Wagner's still out there. I'm not saying that's going to happen, guys. I'm saying just watch it. That's a kind of, value signing that can make a ton of sense for the Eagles. I don't think they're in on it right now, guys. I think the price is probably way too high for their liking. And, that's what happened with Steven Nelson. He got released a little late. And then on top of that, he valued himself at a certain level that teams weren't willing to go to, right? He saw himself as a legitimate number 2 cornerback that probably could be the number 1 cornerback on certain teams, which I don't think he's completely wrong in that viewpoint of things. It's just, even I said the numbers I had reported early on in Steven Nelson I thought were way too high. He was wanting $8 to $10 million originally is what was reported. And I said, they can get him for anything under 6. I think it's a value signing, although I have concerns about him. And it turns out they got him for a lot less than 6, and they got him for that 1-year deal, and it was a great signing that happened during the summertime. I think that's what you're looking for in terms of the off-the-ball linebackers, guys, is can you get something during the early summer portion? So outside of just that, guys, I don't think the Eagles are done in terms of defensive end. I would highly suspect that at defensive end, you're going to see them jump into the draft. Same thing with interior defensive lineman, defensive tackle. I still think this football team is searching for that true nose tackle inside the interior defense, right? They will use Fletcher Cox in that role. They will use Javon Hargrave more so in that role. They've drafted Marlon Tuipulotu the season before to play that role, but it never really materialized out. So now the question you have to ask yourself is with Hassan Ridgeway exiting, who was pretty much the backup nose tackle here in Philadelphia, and he's now at the 49ers, do the Eagles reassess that situation knowing that Hargrave and Cox are really only here for what we can tell so far for one more year? Now, Hargrave could be extended further than that. Cox could be brought back if they reach agreement past the season. I'm not saying that's completely a done deal per se, guys, but in the meantime, it probably will behoove the Eagles to really think about nose tackle options for the interior defensive line, and then also just true 3 techniques, right? Milton Williams definitely can play football. He's a good interior pass rusher as a 3 tech, but I'm pretty sure they wouldn't mind getting a guy like a Devontae Wyatt who's a good 3 tech. Perion Winfrey is a little bit of an undersized guy, kind of like Milton Williams, but an incredibly good pass rusher from the 3 tech. Wyatt's a little bit more of a do-it-all, though. I think Wyatt can really play football. In terms of your other nose tackle, there's Travis Jones out there in Connecticut. He's not really – he could play the 3-tech, but he's more so kind of like your traditional nose tackle, that interior defensive lineman. He's kind of like one of those guys that can kind of play that role, guys. That's pretty much what he can do there. So, I wouldn't be shocked for the Eagles to go after edge rushers and then also to go after interior defensive linemen, which also brings up the complexity of the Sam linebacker position, which is an on-the-ball position inside of Gannon's defense. So it's a hybrid defensive lineman-linebacker role that gets played there. And, right now they have Haason Reddick, and they got him on a long-term deal. So, they're not, they're not up the creek without a paddle or anything like that, guys. And, of course, they got, some guys like Patrick Johnson, a guy they drafted last year that maybe they like a lot. Maybe they could see doing some stuff with him on the ball and trying to getting him prepped. That's true. We'll have to see how they feel about Patrick Johnson in the long run, but I wouldn't put it past them to look if someone slips in the draft like an Mbekti or, a Boy Mafi goes later than what people are thinking. I think Boy Mafi right now is kind of rumored to be a late first round, even a really early second round, but say he's still hanging around there around pick 51. A guy like Boy Mafi or a guy like Arnold Mbekti, who are these kind of edge rushers, defensive ends that can play that role, right? These guys are far better standing up in a joker role or a rush linebacker role than they are with their hands in the dirt. So, players like that you kind of have to be on the look on for defensively, I think. And obviously corner. Veteran options, certainly. I still think the Eagles should add a veteran in free agency. I know I talked about outside corner with Tay Gowan and some of the younger guys, but I never really talked about free agency or the draft. I think the Eagles are probably going to sign a veteran outside cornerback, and I think they will also be in the draft just because Slay's older. Slay's not going to be here forever. You got to start now bringing in those younger guys. So I kind of look at it, and I think back to the early 2000s, back when we still had like Troy Vincent here and Bobby Taylor, and the Eagles still went out there and got like Lito, Shepard and Sheldon Brown, and brought those guys in to slowly incorporate them into the defense. And within a year or two, they kind of took over those roles. So I think now's the time that you do that with young cornerbacks if you're the Philadelphia Eagles. All right, guys, my last thing I want to talk about, guys, is I've been spending a lot of time out here on this here patio, and I've been preparing my draft guide for you. I've split it up between offense and defense, and the offense is almost done. I'm hoping to launch that for you guys sometime this weekend, but at latest early next week. So stay tuned, guys, because I'm going to be announcing that it's going to be up for download very soon. The 2022 Offensive NFL Draft Guide from Gate City Sports. It will be Eagles specific. It will have use your imagination to how many players are on there because it's a lot, guys. I can tell you right now as we sit here and we talk, I'm over 50 offensive players I have broken down. So it's pretty exciting, guys. I can't wait to release that to you guys. All right, y'all. I appreciate y'all's time and attention. Leave your comments down below. Let me know what you think, and I will see you guys on the next video.